Everything's carbon, set up just as the machine would be for race days, and he's just going to get him to sign the seat up.
So I'm going to be doing the full fluid changes on the 748 today. I might do a coolant, I might do a coolant tomorrow, I don't know. But we're going to be doing the rear brake, front brake, clutch, stuff like that. So let's take a look. Okay, most of my videos are aimed for people who've not, I include things that for people who've not done this before. So if you're suspecting of what to do, okay. If you're an advanced mechanic, you don't need to really watch this, but you might find something I do that it gives a useful tip to you. So, for those of you who've never done this before, we're going to start with the rear brake, with the clutch, sorry, then the rear brake and the front. And what I've got here, you may not have one of these. You don't need one, but they are quite good. It's a vacuum suction hose thingy, whatever it's called, brake bleeder. And I've got here, just for the front brake, I've got this little hose here so I can wire it for 2 and bleed 2 brakes with that. So at the moment I'm going to be using my single one, which is there for the clutch, because the clutch fluid, it's low, it's disgusting, it's dirty, and what I want to do is give this a good clean. Oh, look at that. Ooh, right, so down here we've got our 8mm bleed screw nipple thing. Crack that seal off. Fluid's coming out there, look. I'm going to get the back brake off because it's not really in an ideal position to bleed it. I'm going to get the back rear brake off. I'm going to take it off all the way around here because we want to get that. We want to raise our brake cable so that way the air will rise up to the bleed nipple. It's not in a good position like that to bleed it. We're also going to get the wheel off to do that. The front brakes are brilliant on these, where they are positioned. Everything's positioned perfectly with your Brembo. The bleed screw is right at the top where it should be, and it runs right round there, as you can see. I'm going to get some penetrating fluid on that and try to get the nut off and seize it. Okay, so this is a little bit like a dentistry, isn't it? My vacuum there, get rid of all that. Drop in there and give him a wipe out. When you look at this, where air can get trapped, right? The air will get trapped up here, and so it's going to stick up here. When you want to bleed these properly, what you want to do is first get all the air away from this area. So this is at the wrong angle to bleed it. Right, this needs to be raised. This area needs to be raised here for the air to escape. What I'm going to do is just put some fluid back in there. So I've got some fluid in there, right? Now there will be air still trapped in this pipe. So carefully, we're not going to give it full pulse, carefully. See that? I'm barely squeezing this. Get rid of the air from your massa first. Another little pull. Very slowly. Another little bubble coming, watch. There we go, see that? I'm barely pushing that out. It will surprise you how much air gets stuck in your system. On some bikes you can actually turn the handlebars and the area will raise, so it makes it easier for you. Right, okay. It's a bit difficult actually when there's quite a lot of fluid in there. I might have to get a little bit more fluid out of that. Sorry, I'm being quite messy. Okay, so you don't want too much fluid in there when I'm going to do this because it'll just tip out. What I'm going to do is elevate this area so any air trapped in there, if there is any, it'll rise up and come out the top, alright? Let's see if there's any in there. It's quite difficult to pull this. I'm trying to do this as a demonstration. Oh, we've got air coming out there, look, already. There's one bubble. You don't really have to pump it. All I'm doing is elevating this. Just allow anything to rise up. Try and get Another good angle on there. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to mount this back on and we're going to do a flush, fluid flush. Right, so we're all set. I've got my bleed kit set up beside it here. I've got my hose just wrapped around there. Keep it as vertical as possible so I can watch the air rise out of it. This is just fluid dripping back into there. It's not coming out of this. So what I'm going to do is just crack that off. You can now see that raising up quickly. That fluid, so gravity's taking over now. If I leave that open, then this will eventually drain down, okay? It's gravity bleeding. So, but it'll only go so far until this levels out with whatever's in the tube, in the pipe itself. It'll stop bleeding out. So what I'm going to do is just keep topping this up. Now there's a few ways of doing this. I'm going to show you how to use my vacuum bleed pump thing first, which all you have to do really is operate the lever. That will take out that fluid. You've got to be quick, you've got to be in here. Keep that topped up. That fluid is draining. The quicker that drains, with very little pressure, sorry, the sound. The quicker that drains with very little pressure is a good thing. It means it's quite clear in there. That is going down pretty quickly, so that will just flush through literally. I'll leave that going. So fill up that reservoir. I don't really have to have it on full send. I can actually put it on like this, just so it's better to control it up. Get some fluid in there, otherwise you're sucking air in. So, in a nutshell, what I'll be doing here is just running that through until your fluid becomes clear. So you don't really have to disassemble everything. You keep flushing this through, it will take out any contaminants, believe me, it will. Oh, got some noise in here today. Right, we've got silence at once, the compressor stopped doing its thing. So that's crystal clear in there, and we've got all our dirty fluid in there, and it's crystal clear coming through that tube now, so that is flushed out. Even though it's clear, just continue, give it some more cycles, because there can be little bits of moisture and stuff still trapped inside it. But this seems to be perfect now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this off, okay? Lock that off. Try my clutch, see if I've got any more compression in it. Getting pumping. Only problem with this is it's got an aftermarket slave cylinder, and I do not like stuff like that. Most of these that have a shorter push on them, so it might seem like it's doing its good job. It might seem like it's got a big piston in it, but it's got a shorter stroke on it, so it's going to make your clutch drag a little bit. But it seems to be even now. Before it had a bit of play here. So what I'm going to do is give it a few pumps and see if we've got any air trapped inside. That's getting, I don't know if that's getting better or what, but it seems to be good. There's some good pressure in there now. Seems like a nice even clutch. Alright, so the old method, what we're going to do with the pump and twist method, we're just going to go not all the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold that at the same time as you're holding this. We're going to go down here, hold our lever in while we're down here, the brake lever's held in, and we're going to pull this as well. Watch that shoot out. Close it off and let go of our lever. We'll now have very little pressure. I can feel that now. No pressure. Help that build up again. 4, 5. You don't have to do it fast and rapidly. Just slow and controlled. We've got pressure there now, so we'll hold that in. And again. Lock that off. Release it. Watch for air coming out and lock it off. There's no air coming out of there. Lever will be slack now. All the way in with these, just like that. So we're going to now build up our pressure. Not going all the way in with it. I can hear the clutch moving now. Okay, I'm going to repeat this until you will get all the air out of your system. And also, as you're doing that, every time you crack this bleed nipple, you will get a drop in fluid the moment you release that lever. Alright, so keep this topped up. I'm happy with that, personally. I'm going to try that out. Operate the clutch when we're finished, and we'll see if the clutch actually works after the rebuild. There's something something suspicious in the clutch setup when I took it apart, which I'm going to try and go over in a minute, but we'll wait till we've got all the brakes on first and we'll focus on the clutch. But that's how you do it basically. When you're finished with this container, obviously if you've got one of these, keep an eye on it, don't let it go over half, because if that if it fills up to here, it will just spurt out all over. It's happened to me, I'm in a right mess, so just make sure you make sure that this doesn't go over half filled. There's a bleed valve at the bottom under there. You can let it trickle out or just undo the container, pour it away. When you're finished, you'll still have fluid left in your pipe. What you want to do is just operate this and pull your pipe off. Operate that, put it on full whack and pull your pipe off. That way it will retain any fluid that's left in the pipe, because if you pull your pipe off like this now, it's going to go all over your bike. So make sure you do that. Put the lever on, start the vacuum, pull your pipe off, hold it away from the bike, hold it up high. That way all your fluid's going to go back into your container. Right, so I'm going to tidy this clutch up now and we'll get the back brake done. Right, we're all set for the back brake. So there's a few ways of doing this. You don't have to take the back wheel off, you don't have to actually take the brake caliper off. You can actually bleed it from the caliper, but it will be difficult to get all the air out of there, alright? My advice is you take your wheel off and you take your caliper off, or take your caliper off, leave the wheel on, something like that. Two ways. One way you can do it is just drop it back on the brake caliper like that. I've got my the chain guard, I've removed the brake line cover. This, you can raise it up high like this, okay? We'll come around to this side. I've got my fluid reservoir, which is usually mounted here. I've taken that out, just tied it in, give it a tie up, anything you want to do there to secure it. We don't need to secure it, not going to touch that, we're just going to pour fluid in it. So we can use our foot on this one to operate this brake lever, which does feel very spongy. Feels like there's no pressure in that whatsoever, there's too much free play, and that's the reason why we're doing this. So my brake caliper is mounted on the top of the disc there. I'm going to do this the exact same way, because I've got the vacuum hose bleed kit. I don't really have to elevate as much, I can just draw all that out straight into here, okay? So I will advise you, if you're going to take this off, is make sure you crack off that bleed nipple first before you actually take this off, because it can be quite stiff. It's 11 mil, this bleed nipple. What I'm going to do is, it's right behind there, just like that. It's hard to get a ring spanner into it because of the banjo bolt. I do like to use ring spanners over open spanners, because you're less chance of rounding them off. So I'm going to do is crack that off, open him up, and we've not got any fluid coming out of there yet. Let's move my little tie wrapper. I've got this little tie wrap on just to help create a better seal onto the bleed screw. Let's get my light on. There we go, Paul. It just helps to get a better seal on it. Some of these bleed vacuum devices, once you put some strong pressure in, you can actually start drawing air from under the bleed screw. So when you slacken the bleed screw off, you're introducing an air gap around the thread, so you can actually pull. You can actually pull draw air from that way. So one good way is just put some pressure down on it if you want to operate it. Grab it and put some pressure down, and then that'll help with a seal. Other than that, don't open it too far, or don't put too much vacuum pressure in there to pull it all out. Otherwise, you will draw air from the outside. Right. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw this fluid out through there. Let's turn him on. Turn him on. There we go. So I'll stop that a little bit. Let's see if we can get any air out of it. Very gently. There you go. Look at all that coming out of there now. Whoa. There doesn't appear to be any air coming out of there. I can actually see tiny air bubbles coming out. I'm going to turn this on full, so there's going to be a lot of air coming out now. We're literally vacuuming all that crap and flushing it through with fresh fluid. So you don't have to strip it apart or nothing like that. Right, I'm going to slow it down. So that is completely flushed through. We've got nice clean fluid coming out now. There's only air bubbles in here which we created ourselves from the rapid acceleration. So what I would like to do, I just shut that off. That's closed off now. I'm just going to operate the lever. There's no pressure there. Oh, there we go. That feels 100 times better. There's still a bit of play in that. There may be some air in it, or it might just want adjusting, but that feels 100 times better. It's actually biting there now. I think there is too much play in there, but that's biting nice. Before it was biting down here. I can't even push that anymore. That feels good. Right. So now our rear brake, if you hold that caliper up like that, I've got a 5mm Allen key. 5mm Allen key, use them a lot on Ducatis. Just trap between those pads there, so if I do compress the lever, then I'm not going to close the pads up, alright? So with me holding that up, any air that's in there should race to the top to here. Air rises, okay, leave it there a few minutes. You can actually just hang them on some string if you like. Just raise it up so it'll work its way towards this nipple. Obviously, when the air, you got to think about how it's travelling, so when it travels up, it'll get stuck in here next. You can even crack this nut off and slowly depress the, put some pressure on the brake lever, and air will come out of here, and do the same thing as you do with the bleed nipple. Operate the lever slowly, and crack that off, and then tighten it back up again. That way it'll bleed any air that's stuck in there, right? Other than that, just hold it up there for a few minutes and tilt it upside down just to see if any air is trapped inside it, and that'll work its way now, should be working its way to the top. That's if there is air in it. So if you've got good brakes, your brakes are working, you just want to change the fluid, you don't really need to bleed air out, you can just bleed the fluid out. So I'm going to try and hopefully just shake this around a little bit, make sure there's no air trapped in that, just to get it out. It won't gravity bleed like this, by the way, so if you crack that nipple there, it's very more likely that air will escape if it's in there, but fluid won't, because this is higher than the reservoir, right? So for that to gravity bleed, you need this lower than the reservoir itself. If I operate the nipple, I should see some air rise out of there before the fluid does. Just a minute, let me get my rag. We won't contaminate those pads. You'd think fluid should be rising out there. Ah, there's an air bubble coming out. Pop, another one. Little pop, there you go. Nip that up there. So there's air coming out of that. Got none down here. We don't want to be doing this too much because we're going to get our pads contaminated. So what I'm going to do now is put my pipe on there to try and get the rest of that out. It's a bit knotty. There we go, get that pushed out. Still a bit of play in it. We'll adjust that. That feels good. Other parts are coming in now. Look at this beauty here. We've got a nice standard clutch slave cylinder. It arrived very fast thanks to Ducati Motorcycles, Tony Beckett on Facebook and eBay. Check him out. That's arrived well ahead of time. I did not expect this to arrive so soon, and it is pristine condition at a very good price as well. Quite impressed with that. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is absolutely well and truly seized to that nut there. The other one's free, so what I'm going to have to do with that is I'm going to take this off, remove it from here completely. First, I mean, I can't even drain the fluid out of it because I can't get the top off, but we're going to remove this and try and soak it in something overnight. See if we can free it off. I well seized in there, so I'll put it on an angle, just nipped it in the vise a little bit to hold it, and I've put some harpic in there. Hopefully that will eat away at the rust. You can already see the nut has got clean metal on it, so leave that to soak in there. Hopefully it'll get down to those threads. I don't want to butcher this, so I've got to be very careful with it, otherwise we'll have to replace that with another one. I don't want to be cutting any holes in there. Headlight bulb. So we've also got a headlight bulb that is out, and when I looked in here, it looks like the wiring's a little bit rusted in there. Also the bulb, it appears to be, the element's okay on that, it appears to be intact, but the wiring, you can get that out. But the wiring is exposed, so that could have just been shorted out. I've got a new bulb anyway. I'll put a new one in and see if that works. Got a new bulb here. Wiring's all nice. I'll plug him in now and see if he gives us some light. Right. Right, make sure the fuel pump's off. Lights. Side lights. Oh, there we go, bingo. High beam, there we go, lovely. It's one fire put out. Okay, so I've tried everything with this and it's so fucking tight. So what I've done is I've just carefully pressed this driver bit in there to grip the nut without penetrating through the plastic, and it is very, very tight. It's very seized as this, so I've got to be careful. But it is moving, I believe. It's coming now. Oh, we've done it. We've done it, guys. Together we are triumphant. Right. Let's hope I'll not bust into the plastic. That is free to come out. Need to get that nut out of there and put a new one in. Oh, winner. Look at the state of that. Okay. So I'll clean all these threads up and it should be good to put back in. Right, so I'm giving that screw a little harpic bath to help get that rust off it. We'll check on that in a minute. Let it do its magic. Ooh. Okay. We'll get this to clean out and we'll mount it back on the bike, and then we'll proceed with the bleeding. This rubber pressure seal here, it's welded itself or fused to the cap, so I don't just want to pull that out. It might tear it. It might be useless now, to be honest, but we'll try and soak this in WD-40 or something, and hopefully it'll come free. We can clean it out, but we're almost there. Okay, Blah. Nasty. Right then, so good as new that. Look at that now, beautiful. Get it nice clean. We've got all that crap from this cap here. We've cleaned that bolt up in some Harpic. I'm not going to go too crazy with it because it's going to will begin to rust again. That if we're not careful, it does need place, you know, treating. But what we're going to do is going to cover it in grease anyway. It's a lot better than it was. That's the other one, which is pretty much fine. I put some new nuts in there, brand new nuts in there. I've cleaned that out best I can everywhere. I'm going to put some grease down here, so it should protect these threads when they're inside there. But you know, it's a good idea just to loosen them off every now and again, just give them a little bit of a clean. Right, so we're going to mount this back on the bike now and get that front brake bleeded. Okay, we're ready. I've not touched the brake, by the way, so there won't be any air in the system. Only in the master cylinder. Sorry. So what I'm going to just do now, I'm going to give this gentle squeezes in and out, just to push any air out of there. Okay. There we go. And let go. Very gentle squeezes, not all the way in. Right, so I've got most of the air out of there now, so I'm going to bleed the master cylinder first. I like to just move this around a little bit before I start sucking all that fluid out. I do like to give it a few gentle presses just to release anything that's in here in the pipe, because you don't want to really introduce air into the whole system. Alright, always start with the master cylinder first, and all we're going to do is crack that off. We want to put our handlebars to the left so that it elevates this area here, this here. If it's elevated, then the air will rise up to it, okay? Air rises. So get some fluid in there. I'm running low on fluid, I need some more. Fill that up. I'm going to use my vacuum bleeder, okay? You can do the press and twist bloody method if you like to do. Pump and twist, whatever we call it, I don't know. There we go. Gently this, I'm not going to put too much pressure into it. Remember, some of these air bubbles won't be from the system, it will be out of the threads, because I've cracked this off, unloosened it, it will draw air from around the bleed nipple, so don't be fooled. Let's turn that off now. That started the vacuum. Look, see air coming out of that there? Little bubbles there. So all I will do, there's another air bubble just trapped in there, look, there we go, there we go. So all I'm going to do is put this on ever so slightly. Just slight pressure. Just to get it moving. Like I said, of course, you can, if I pull that lever, it will push that out, and then you can lock it off and release the lever if you like. So that is not air coming out of the system, by the way. This is just the vacuum hose is sucking all that fluid out, and that builds up. It should slow down. Right, lock that off. Get that out. Build up our compression. Hopefully now that should have moved any air to this. Do it again. Crack it off. Crack one off. Tiny little bubbles coming out of there. And tighten them up. So I'm going to repeat that process, if you like, repeat that process until you either get your compression back or the air stops coming out, and then you want to move on to your calipers. So always bleed your master cylinder first. Even if you're not going to all these bleed nipples, get your master cylinder. If you're not going to always bleed nipples, sorry, you've not got one, because most all the Ducatis don't, just fill your reservoir up carefully, gently, and tilt your master cylinder around a little bit just to let that air come out. And also give it a little gentle press, slow gentle press, just like this. I can feel the compression there, that's good. A slow gentle press just like that, and watch them air bubbles come out of that cap, okay? Because what you don't want to do is fill this up. The biggest mistake people make when they're bleeding brakes or hydraulics, they'll fill this up and they'll start to bleed it from down there straight away. And what you're doing is any air in here, you're eventually pushing it right down to your calipers, and most of the time it will just get stuck in your cables here. It can get stuck here in your brake cables, all right? It won't go very far, and then your brakes will be just constantly spongy, and you'll say to yourself, or you'll say there's no air coming out of it, but they still feel spongy. End up buying new master cylinder seal kits and brake caliper seal kits, stuff like that. If you got a leak on your system, it will bleed fluid out. Trust me, it will. If you get an air leak on your system, it will push fluid out, right? Even the slightest air leak, it will actually, your brakes will not work. It takes a lot of pressure to hold that fluid in there. All right, so just be aware of that. Always make sure there's no air in your system at the top first before you bleed it out. Okay, so when you do fit new parts, I know I'm going on a little bit. When you do fit new parts, I always try to prime the calipers first before I fit a cable. Get a syringe if you like. Just carefully bleed some liquid into there, some brake fluid into the calipers, and then just allow it to seep to the bottom and push the air back up to the top. Okay, and work your way from there. There's some brakes like dirt bike hydraulics, KTMs, stuff like that. They work on a back bleed system on the clutch. Actually, they work on a back bleed system, so you basically get a syringe and you push the fluid from the bottom to the top. That's how you bleed them. This is just a system for it's a better way of doing it, to be honest. Just get the shit out and the air out. It's a quicker way of doing it. If you've obviously a dirt bike's going to be going down quite a lot, so you don't want to be putting air in your system, in your hydraulics when that happens. So it's quite a good way of doing it. I think they should do it on these actually with a one-way valve. Anyway, we'll crack on. So I'm going to keep the camera here because there's no point alternating from different sides. It's the same thing. So I'm doing a fluid flush change now. So I've cracked this off here. Give that a twist like that. This should rise a minute. What I'm going to do just to get it going, I'm going to depress the lever. Just start pushing fluid through there. I can see it now. And keep the lever depressed. I'm going to close it. And again, can't see any air coming out of it, to be honest with you. It feels solid. Okay. That's filling that pipe up lovely. So you can get crap inside the top of the bleed nipple. A reason why I crack it and operate the lever is just to push that crap out, because the vacuum may not do it. Alright, so I'm going to do the other side and then we'll get the vacuum on. Right, you can probably hear the hitting of the vacuum. Oh, fuck's sake. I'm wearing my Rambo t-shirt today because to win a war, you got to become a war, if you know what I mean. Right, so I'll put my little cap back on. I put some graphite grease all over these threads. If you ever take a bolt out, make sure you bloody grease it. Okay. I don't really want any grease in there, because you don't want to introduce that to your, contaminate your brake system. Alright, let's stick that on top. There it goes. Okay, we'll tighten those up and we'll put our bolt back in here, which is also greased. Struggling with one hand. I need a bigger bloody tripod. And we'll give it all a wipe down after. And don't do what I did and get tangled around the freaking bike. Right, so pretty clean job that. We're not getting any fluid anywhere. Stick these in here for the time being. Don't fill your fluid reservoir too high. I'm going to put the screw back in there with some grease, of course. Just make sure it's just, I put it just under the maximum minimum. If you put it too high, and once this gets hot, you're going to end up building pressure, so the fluid can't release, so you'll have trouble with your brakes yet again. Okay, so just make sure you don't overfill that at all. Right, okay. Right, everybody, that's the hydraulic systems all nice and firm now. I'm just going to go and do something with my air. Right, so next job I'm going to be doing on this is the second oil change, and then get some Terminionis fitted, so the guy who owns it is going to come and bring some Terminioni exhaust for me. And I think practically after that it's build the bike up, so not much to do on it now. It'll give it a nice fire up with some Terminionis on, so it sounds nice and Ducati-like. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go sort my hair out and have myself a coffee. Okay, thank you for watching. Anyway, hope you've learned something there. There's a few ways of doing the brake bleeding. Like I said, there's some problems people face all the time. I see it online, Facebook, stuff like that, on some of the groups where people are bleeding their brakes and doesn't appear to be any air coming out, but yet they're still spongy. And some people go for master cylinder kits. And some people I've known, some groups, or some people have asked me, said that I've rebuilt my calipers, rebuilt my master cylinder, new braided hoses, but the brake is still spongy. That can possibly be because there's air still trapped in the master cylinder. Not all the time will the air actually come out, so you can get to a point where it's stuck and the fluid will literally push past the air bubbles. So you just got to elevate things and twist and turn and make sure you helping that air to move around. You watch it in the tubes. If you get air in your bleed tubes when you're bleeding it out into a container, you shut the flow off on the bleed screw. You watch sometimes the air will rise very slowly, or it'll just stop even. So just think of it, that's what's happening inside your brake tubes. All right, you need to get everything every level. All right, so anyway, I'm gonna get my coffee, get my hair sorted out, and might walk the dog. Yes, see you later.